Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Natalie Alcaraz, and I am a registered dietitian. I'm also a certified intuitive eating counselor, for those of you who know what that means. And just a little bit about me, I've been working in the field for probably about 15 years. I've loved food and kind of nutrition too for as long as I can remember. I think I got started as a dietitian from my own disordered eating past. So navigating that has been really fun and insightful. And just in the last couple of years, I kind of gravitated to private practice just again, because I love more of the intuitive eating type approach. And that's what I'm excited to talk to you guys about today. So we're going to be talking about a couple things. And again, sometimes I get a little off script just because I kind of get excited when I do these little talks. But I have this like set of notes just so I try to stay on script as much as possible. What I'm thinking is I want to get a feel of what you all think is really non-diet nutrition. What does that mean to you? Or what does intuitive eating mean to you? We're going to talk about that first. Then I want to do some definitions and clarifiers. So what exactly does traditional dieting entail or define? And what exactly is the non-diet approach? So we're nice and clear on that. Then as you guys can see, we have a little activity, which is kind of just, again, getting you guys curious about if you think you're an intuitive eating or intuitive eater and what that looks like. And if you could use some more support in that area. And then there's just a couple of takeaways we're going to end with today. So I want to hear from you all because people look at me like I'm crazy when I tell people I'm like an anti-diet dietitian or a non-diet dietitian. So what do you all think? Like, what comes to mind when you think of that? Like when I say that, or you saw that information on the flyer, or do you guys know about it? Just shout out whatever you think.
You don't follow a prescribed.
Yeah. Yep. Good. Okay, I like that. Yeah. I really don't, although I could make millions that way. So just, I haven't thought of that, but what else?
I understand it was to like fullness.
Yeah.
Prefer when you should and not versus following the prescribed method.
Yep, totally. Yeah.
So counting calories is out of the question.
Oh, put away the calculators. No, just joking. But how about my other favorite question too to kind of get started with is what do you guys think of that approach from what you know of it? Some people are like, you're just gonna let me eat chocolate cake all day. You know, like have you gotten like a sense of the backlash, or do you guys have any kind of thoughts like that about it from what you know?
I think where I'm still confused about or
Yeah.
haven't figured out yet for myself is where the freedom line is.
Sure.
And like listening to fullness foods, but not to the point where it's like I can eat whatever I want at any time and like figure out where that line is.
Yes, 100%. And it's all about that mind-body connection, right? So, and that's where there's like huge differences between like traditional dieting modalities and non-diet modalities. So good. Well, I'm glad you guys aren't going to attack me. No, just joking. You still could. Yeah, I have some clients who really like give me a hard time, but they kind of catch on once they hear me talk a little while. So, okay. So I want to give the disclaimer too that whatever is working for you to manage like your health, or if you have any chronic conditions, and if it's working for you, like stick with it. I just want to offer another perspective. And I say that with sincerity. Like I don't like to pick like what I call food fights or nutrition fights. I just like to offer like another side of nutrition, which I think is like new and emerging, and it's so exciting. So traditional dieting, many of you have already said it. It typically involves restriction of calories. It involves restriction of foods. It involves restriction of food groups. A lot of times the main goal is either weight loss, maybe sometimes weight gain, or just changing the body type that you might have. Many of you might have heard the statistic 95% of diets fail. And then that other 5% is like, they're the only ones who could kind of keep that weight off for more than 5 years. So in the intuitive eating, which is a framework I'm going to talk about today, they do a really cool analogy. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, it's like, if you took a round trip flight to Sweden and you knew you only had like a 5% chance of getting there, would you do it? I mean, seriously, would you do it? If you're going to get surgery and there's only a 5% success rate, would you do it? You know what I'm saying? So like, again, it's just kind of good to put things into perspective. But again, it's hard to, right? When we're like steeped in diet culture, everywhere you look, right? Friends, family, they're doing the latest thing. And then some other food for thought I really like too is like, if dieting worked, why do we restart every January? Why do we do that to ourselves? And we make it what they say, like 3 weeks tops for most of us. So yeah, so that's, and again, I'm not shaming like traditional dieting, but those are just some things to think about, that a lot of times we hear diets glamorized, but we don't kind of think of the other side, the dark side is what I like to call it. So what really a non-diet approach is, it focuses on things like intuitive eating, body positivity, or at least like body acceptance and self-care rather than prescriptions, and then rather than weight loss being the primary goal. A lot of times, like when I first start working with clients, they're like, I just want to lose that 15 pounds. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm not against that, right? Like, you have your own feelings about weight loss and that's fine. But how can we look at a bigger picture? Like, what are other goals that you have? You want to be stronger. You want to be able to walk up 3 flights of stairs without getting tired. You want to get on the ground and play with your kids. Like, let's try to think of some other things other than weight. So non-diet nutrition, it's right, it's a holistic concept that's gaining popularity. I keep referring to intuitive eating. Have any of you guys heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What do you know a lot about it, or you just think you're scraping the surface? Like, has anybody read this before? No. Okay. So intuitive eating is it's a concept that 2 dietitians came up with about 20 to 30 years ago. And it is an alternative for dieting. It's just really like the framework I like to use with a lot of my clients. But basically, this is the first almost like way. It's kind of similar to like mindfulness or mindful eating, if you've heard of that, but it incorporates some like self-care pieces, compassion pieces, pleasure with food pieces more. But this is kind of what I'm going to be referring to a lot. So I just want to let you know that this is, we'll be talking about this, but in case I keep saying intuitive eating, this is what I'm talking about. Traditional dieting too is really kind of focused on those external cues. So things we think of when I say diet culture, right? Points, different diets that cut out weight groups, maybe things even like fasting, where you have to only eat in certain time ranges. What else? Like people have certain like calorie limits. Like I can't go over 1800, otherwise I have to stop eating at 4 o'clock. So, when we think of traditional diets, we think of a lot of like focusing on those external cues, even if we're hungry, right? Even if we're biologically hungry, mentally hungry, maybe like we just got done working out, but it's, like we're just so out of touch with those like internal bodily cues. More of the intuitive eating or non-diet nutrition is focusing on those internal cues, just like you said, right? It's like, are we listening to our body? Like, are we stopping when we're full? Do we proceed to keep eating when we're hungry? Do you guys ever do that? Like, do you ever just take a moment? Okay, tell me about that. Like, what is that like for you?
Stop part or the
Both. Yes, whatever you care to share.
Plates or in the bowl where like, oh, it's just a little bit.
Yes.
I'm just gonna, like I find, if there's a handful of bottle of wine.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
Yes. 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 Me too. Yeah. And how do you how do you feel about that?
I've started to question that.
Yeah.
Like and that's kind of where I struggle with intuitive eating. I'm so used to like, okay, I've made this dish and I'm gonna portion it out to 6 things.
Yes.
And that's always worked for me. But
Yes.
I'm not sure if that.
Yes. Step 1, identifying something might be the problem. I hate to say the problem, but those are like those food rules. That's a part of diet culture, right? I often hear from my clients that are a little bit older, just like to clean your plate, right? And I think I was raised on that too, 35 years ago, 40 years ago. Like you have to clean your plate, or like I made these 6 portions, let's just polish them off, or the bottle of wine, let's just finish it, right? For whatever reason that might be, right? But again, it's like, it is good to kind of challenge that. Is that working for you? Is that serving you? Right. And so that's, I think, where intuitive eating, it's not just about hunger and fullness, but it's like deciphering like the whys and hows like behind all that too. I often tell people I'm not really a dietitian. I'm more of like a nutrition therapist, because a lot of times breaking down these issues or like these food rules, it does amount to like maybe some deeper things that we've kind of suppressed, or maybe some anxieties we have around food or these situations. So yeah, it's fun to explore that, but thank you for sharing. Yeah. Does anybody else want to share anything like about hunger and fullness cues? see you thinking over there.
I think
Make it-
it has to, like, also for me, like, finances too.
Yes.
Like, I've paid for this,
Yes.
I want to see what I spent my money on,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like it's a part of our society and like our almost like our social fabric, right? To see black and white in a lot of things. Like I think dieting's like that, but it's like sometimes it's like all about like being curious about that thought. Like, can you box it up or can you save it or can you donate it? Like I had one of my clients yesterday was saying she broke her toe. She had a friend who brought over 3 dozen cookies from Pick and saved her pumpkin shape. It was like very specific. And she's just like, I like these cookies, but enough is enough. I just can't eat 3 dozen cookies. So she's like, I just took them to like the local homeless shelter, and like, I guess they were really appreciative. And I was like, that's a beautiful story. And maybe just something that we wouldn't have thought about if we didn't kind of talk openly about it, right? Or if we just kind of stayed with like our traditional way of thinking of how to deal with that. Thank you for sharing that. So non-diet nutrition too, it involves a lot of like nourishment, self-care, forgiveness. Like maybe on those days you just do want to finish a bottle of wine. Like, do you kind of just like, can you just let some of those times go if they're few and far between, or do you feel guilty about it? Traditional dieting would make you feel guilty about it, right? You went over your Weight Watchers points. It's like, like the world's going to end because you had 5 extra ounces of wine today. So it's just like, right. And then that triggers like all different types of feelings, right? So yeah, so speaking of that, if you guys can get out your handout while we're talking a little bit about restriction, because I think it's good to kind of know what's going on in our bodies when we are restricting. So and it's like when we talk about dieting, it's always so exciting, right? There's that thrill like the first couple days. Maybe you're going to get those first couple pounds off. Oh my gosh, so exciting. You're in it, you're doing it. What's happening though over those first couple of days and weeks is like your brain sensing something's going on, right? Like maybe instead of using energies from like our glycogen or our carbohydrate stores, we're getting them from bones, we're getting them from our organs, we're getting them from other areas. And the brain's already picking up on that sense of survival. It's like, just like call the cops, like something's going on and we have to put an end to it right away. So what happens? Like, and again, this is extreme, but it still can happen to a lesser degree with dieting. Your digestion changes, right? Some of my clients who might have eating disorders, they have constipation, right? Or things that aren't regulating the right way. You might have a drop in heart rate. You might have a decrease in body temperature. The biggest one I see with like casual dieters is just the change in metabolism, right? Every consecutive diet you do, like by the time you're older, 40s, 50s, 60s, nothing's working. Your body is like used to that game. It knows like how to react to when you do that to your body. So again, like it really slows down that metabolism, especially we see that later in life. And of course, like when you're going through hormonal changes too. And then too, it's just all those hormones that have to do with hunger. Those are all changing and adjusting to kind of like accommodate this like new diet. So again, all this, what does this lead to? Fatigue, difficulty concentrating. A lot of times, like if you have disordered eating or if you're following a diet that's not working for you, it's just the food fixation. You're just thinking about food all the time. You're thinking about when you can eat next. That's how I was in college. Like I would always like try to stick to this plan. And then it's like, I can't even concentrate because I'm literally just thinking about how I want that brownie or like how I need to eat something, right? You could have nutrition deficiencies. You could have altered lab values, decrease in muscle mass, reduced fertility, weakened bones. So there are a lot of those effects of calorie restrictions that are both like in the short term and in the long term. Have any of you guys like kind of heard of these things before? Yeah, okay. I won't ask if these are happening to any of you, but yeah, I like to share that too, because I think it's like, people are like, oh, I'm just like trying this diet, or, I have a lot of clients who come to me who are also just start taking like the weight loss medications, and it's extreme. They're like, my doctor told me to stick to 1,300 calories. And I'm just literally like, let me please talk to your doctor for 10 minutes first, like give me their name and number. But second of all, like, let's talk about like the impact of that. Like I get you want to have a lot of tools in your toolbox, and maybe weight loss medications is one of them, but let's think of some of the harm that could do too when you're restricting to that degree. Yeah, good. So another piece of non-diet nutrition that I like to talk about is just like the morality behind it. If you guys ever are talking about foods like with friends or family or with other people, I don't know, oh, that's a good food. Oh, that's a bad food. Oh, I'm a good person because I ate all my salad today. Oh, I'm a bad person because somebody was telling me today they just wanted Lucky Charms and they ate all the marshmallows. So I'm a bad person because I did that. I shouldn't be doing that. I should not be doing that. And then I'm literally like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about just the marshmallow piece of that. But seriously, like, I think we assign this like moral code to it that we do with food and dieting that we're not doing in other areas of our life, right? Like for example, you come to this beautiful gym. Doesn't make you a good or bad person. So what does it matter if like you're eating like a brownie once in a while? Does that make you a good or bad person? So I think there's that that moralistic component too that's like extremely like traumatizing when you diet. Because again, like it sets up these goals that are just like not achievable. Another thing I like to talk a lot, but another thing I like to share is on my Facebook page, I don't know how it's set up, but I must be on a lot of like keto for beginners groups, like, when things just pop up or like Weight Watchers family. And it's like, okay, I just like to read the comments to see, just like how these people are reacting. And it's, just from a curious standpoint. And it's like, it just sounds like it's never going to be perfect, right? You have people who are like, out of 5 good jobs, you have like the next person that's like, actually, it's that many points, or actually, like, you can't do that. And it sets you up almost for failure instead of being like a more like supportive network. So non-diet nutrition, yes, welcomes all foods. And that sounds crazy, right? Like, how possibly can like chocolate cake be okay along with like a kale salad, right? But it kind of, I think like what happens in our brains is like when you're putting that food on a pedestal, when you're giving it that high value, it just makes you want it more, right? And then when you restrict that, again, think about what that does to your body, right? You're always thinking about it. You're always yearning for that food. My 2 toddlers, it's like the second I tell them they can't have something, they want it times 5, right? But again, if I just allow them a couple pieces of candy here and there, just using that as an example, they're not always like sneaking and going to like the pantry for the candy, right? Without asking, which is sometimes what we see in like kids, teenagers, and adults. So, and that can be hard. I think one of the approaches we do, or I do with clients is just kind of saying like, if you have like forbidden foods or if you have those fear foods, let's like work through them. Allow yourself to have some. How does it feel? And another concept similarly to that is something called habituation. I don't know if you all have ever been to like a all-inclusive resort or like a buffet, or like if you remember, like if you went to college, like just like the buffets, I guess you'd call them in the food halls. But it's like by like day 2, 3, or 4 of that all-inclusive, like you're kind of over some of those foods, right? Same thing, like if we just allow all foods openly and kind of neutrally and have that neutral playing field in our life, like you end up treating foods that same way too. I think the danger is like when we're labeling foods and we restrict them, it's like it's called the deprivation backlash. We almost want that food even more, right? So yeah, so the next part about this is just exercise. So do you guys feel like you do exercise for what reason? I want to hear what y'all have to say, especially in this gym setting. Do you guys feel like you do it to have a certain physique, weight loss, feel good? You like being with your beautiful, people your colleagues in here? What do you think it is? Yeah, good.
Stronger.
Yes, yes,
I don't want to break the hip.
yes, 100%. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And age.
yes, yeah. And how do you guys feel after these workouts? Yeah, awesome, right? Like the mood's there, right? Like there's all these benefits. Like I know, I was telling Tara, like I used to come here back in the day when I lived closer to Bayview, and I'd like always walk out just that high, like, oh my God, it feels so good. Like, but it's not like oh gosh, like I didn't run for an extra 45 minutes on the treadmill just because I had to burn off my lunch today, right? Those 2 concepts are different. I think with traditional dieting, sometimes it is like exercise is like more of a compensatory thing. Like, how can I burn off what I ate, or how do I deserve what I get to eat because I did this workout? Yes, you so have to earn it. You so have to earn it. And I'll raise my hand. I was like that, gosh, probably the first half of my life, right? Like I did this, so now I get to eat this, or vice versa. But again, what we find, and you guys, probably are living it, is when we do movement for like both, like again, strength, cardiovascular health, when we do it for joy, right? That's sustainable. That's going to last you a long time. And I always think of people who are like, I have some good friends who live on the West Coast, and they're always like hiking mountains. And part of me is like, right? Part of my like dietitian brain is like, oh, the calorie burner, like, wow, you must really, like I even sometimes go there, but they're just like, I just literally like to be at the top of a mountain and see what that looks like. And I'm just like, yep, good. Yep. Okay. But again, like it's things that you truly enjoy. And I always say like those types of activities are things that you would do even on like a bad day, right? It doesn't feel like work when you're doing things like that. Good. And with that, like when we think of like body image, sometimes like with traditional dieting, it's like you almost like push past your pain point, right? There's that like, I'll do anything mentality to be a size fill in the blank, 4, 6, 10, 12, whatever. I'll do anything to be 120 pounds. I have so many clients who are like 40, 50. I just want to be my high school weight. I'm like, okay, let's break this down a little bit. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but let me just break this down a little bit, right? But that's what it gets you to do, right? You see like one influencer that maybe did that, right? We don't know what the rest of their life is, but again, traditional dieting like encourages that type of behavior, where a lot of the non-diet stuff talks more about kind of what I was talking about earlier, the body neutrality or the body positivity pieces, where it's like, yeah, maybe we do want to get stronger. Maybe we want to come here to prevent injury, but let's also like accept the here and now body and see what that does for you, right? I would, think about like treat yourself how you would treat other people. I don't think you would be like, oh, you got to go lose 40 pounds. You got to lose it by my wedding, or, all the crazy things you hear. Like you would never wish that for your best friend or your mom or, your daughter or son or whatever, So a lot of the non-diet kind of stuff like focuses more on that too, is that self-compassion and the body neutrality piece. So are you guys still with me? You still with me? Okay, good. So the last couple of things I want to say just again on deciphering kind of between the two modalities before we get into our activities is that like on a more serious note, the number one contributor to eating disorders is dieting, right? There's been so much research on that again, like these disordered eating patterns, they creep up on you. They snowball diet after diet. And then that's what can truly lead to an eating disorder. And it is, again, because relying on all those external cues, it just becomes too much. And right, you kind of just keep digging yourself into that hole deeper and deeper, and it just gets harder and harder to get yourself out. Plus your relationship with food just keeps getting worse, right? It's like, you don't know what to eat. Some of my clients, they only have like 5 safe foods they can eat, right? Like you just keep going down and spiraling guilt, shame, like labeling foods, right? Like, and it just keeps going deeper and deeper. And a lot of times too, long-term dieting can have like those big impacts on mental health. And it's again, just because, right, you're in this constant cycle, like what we call like weight cycling, lose weight, gain it. Guilt and shame is like going right around that cycle with you, right? So it's like, it's almost those feelings like less than because you think you might have control, but it's really like the diet that's doing you wrong, not that you're not doing the diet. I always like to say that. So again, and then the last thing, how that differs a little bit from non-dieting is just that, almost like checking our own bias on like what body weight means to us. And just knowing that it's such a complex issue. If any of you like are in health or read about this, like, again, like genes dictate so much of your weight, right? Our environment, like social determinants of health, our financial status, like so many things are involved. And again, we have to like look at the whole picture, and kind of like putting that focus on it and seeing it from those lenses is really helpful. And it helps you like determine like, okay, what are some of my health goals that are reasonable, or how can we focus them not just on weight alone? And then too, it's like, and you feel like more like you can do it. Like that's what I noticed the most about my whole career with just being a dietitian is it's like, if you have just the one goal of like losing 20 pounds and nothing else, I mean, chances are, right, like the 95% thing, like you might not get there. And if you're there, it might not last long. Think about like, how can we set up like other goals? So weight is more comprehensive. It is more complex, and we can feel like we can succeed in other areas. So yeah, so that's my little spiel. Does anybody have any questions about that? Like, I don't know if it made sense. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, isn't weight control, isn't it, it's lifestyle change.
100%.
And so I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
and Have to eat everything in moderation, but at some point, you do have to make some sacrifice.
Yeah. And I think, and tell me like what you think a sacrifice would be.
Finishing off the bottle of wine.
Yes.
That would be a sacrifice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's always tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My husband
Yeah.
drank it.
Yeah.
It's just that I'll drink it tomorrow.
You say that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Or, you know,
Yeah.
and it's really
Mhm.
a struggle for me because
Yeah.
my husband is born skinny
Uh-huh.
and it's shit.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I hear that all the time. Yeah.
He goes to a box of ice cream
Mhm.
bars a week and like Linda can buy them.
Yeah. I know.
But I just have to let that go.
Yes.
Let him eat
100%.
in a day.
Yes. I would. And honestly, like, and it's right. We don't have the time to really explore your particular background, but a lot of it is like when you dig deep, it is like what I guess from when I work with clients, like when you kind of like you get below the surface and you find that like, have you been dieting? Is this something where you just constantly weight cycling? Has your metabolism slowed down? You come from different parents, you come from a different background, you've eaten differently, your life looks differently. I mean, there's so many things that can lead up to that. And sometimes it's not fair. But again, like it is just because we all come from different places. Yeah.
Let that go.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
It took a long time
Yeah.
to get over that.
Yeah.
I should have one.
Mm-hmm. I know.
But
Yeah, that is like the diet mentality, like the tit for tat, like, if I often hear like, if I ate a chocolate shake from Culver's, like I'll gain 10 pounds, but so-and-so next to me won't. And again, like it's just bodies are so uniquely different. It's not you just can't do tit for tat. Right. And so letting go of some of that is so important to move ahead. Right. And what's good for your body may not be good for him and vice versa. I like the idea of I want to go back to the wine about just, and I say that only because we're in Wisconsin, right? We're big time drinkers. I get it. My husband works at a very big brewery, so we always have it around. But again, it's like, and again, I'm not saying any of you do this, but how do we cope with some of those feelings? Like, it's like, I know with alcohol, it's like social moment, we're drinking, anniversary, we're drinking. We're doing all these things, but it's like, I like to challenge people, like, how are other ways we could celebrate, right? Or can we buy the smaller bottle of wine if we kind of need that little like sense of control? Like there's other ways we can look at that situation instead of just being like, oh, that's just how it is, or like throwing in the cards, because that is easy to do. That is easy to do. Small things like one of my clients, she just really struggled with like eating out, like her and her husband like doing it. They've decided that's for them. That's fine. But it's like, how can we make it less, almost just like resistible, right? So we're talking about hunger. We're talking about, just different ways at the dining, at that dining experience, how you can slow down, how you can just check in more with yourself so you feel comfortable in that moment. Because 9 times out of 10, it's like, right, if we're eating like a big cheeseburger and fries, sometimes we don't feel good about it, and it's like, but it's like, were we in that moment? Did we kind of check in with ourselves and kind of be like, yeah, I'm still hungry, I'm going to let myself do this? Or did we kind of just go through it because we had to, or for other reasons? I said that right. I hope I did. But yeah, thank you for that observation. Thank you for letting go. Yeah, it's hard to do. Oh, you did? I probably did too. What else does any of this kind of resonate with y'all? Do you feel like you're intuitive eaters, or yeah, any other kind of just general thoughts about it?
I found that if I give myself permission,
Yeah.
and I don't want something.
Yes.
So I can modify the bakery.
Yes.
So if I really want that.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
But is it worth the $5.50? It's probably not.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Good. Yeah. 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 I know. What you're doing is you're just kind of like assessing that situation. I think like you're taking note of, if you want that, how good does it taste? I think, right, we're just, going too quickly through life with eating. We're not even paying attention. Like, how many times do people just like, you're in the car. I always joke that when I drop my kids off at school, it's like, I just ate my breakfast. I don't even remember what I ate really. Right. So it's like, giving yourself that permission, it does take some degree of mindfulness. And I think when you do that, you crave the foods so much less, right? If you just allow those foods to be in your life. Yeah. Good. Well, do you guys want to take the quiz? I'm excited to see what you guys do. So this is in 4 sections, and just answer it yes or no. Again, just be curious. Don't be judgmental. Don't put down the right answer. And just, I want to see how you guys do. Oh, do you need a pen or pencil? Okay. Come and stay. Take our quiz. Just like Cosmo back in the day. How'd you do, Tara?
I'm mostly like emotional.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I try not to worry about it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
For help to deal with stress.
Yes. Yep. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good.
I struggle because I have to cook something for my husband and I.
Yeah.
I run out of ideas.
Yeah.
For protein.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He could eat a sandwich.
Yes.
With stuff on it at every meal.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to think about that.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a struggle at home.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And is it for your own, like your creativity? Like you wish you could think of more dishes or, okay. Yeah.
And I know we need to eat.
Yeah.
But, I struggle to find, and it was funny what you said about, I just want to get to my high school weight.
Yes.
I weighed 185.
Yeah. Oh my, yeah.
So I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
so it's been a lifelong.
Yes.
Mission.
Yeah.
To be healthy because
Yeah.
the body wants fat.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
likes those fat cells plump.
Yeah.
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 So it's.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you loud and clear. What did y'all think when you were doing this? Like anything kind of jump out at you? I know we had some emotional eaters over in this side of the room. Yes.
No. Yeah.
Yes. 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 Yeah. And sometimes that's a good thing, right? Like we're human. Like I think it doesn't have to be like yes or no or black or white. What else? Anything else? Any other thoughts?
I think we're emotionally eating I'm fine with.
Yeah.
It's the fullness view that I
Yes.
have just been trained my whole life to ignore that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I don't stop when I'm full.
Yeah.
That's where I get stuck.
Yeah.
For sure. And I also feel like I know all of this.
I know.
And to the point where it's like, it's an active exercise every day to remember this.
Yes.
To like, my
Yes.
move into that mindfulness.
Yeah.
To the point where almost intuitive eating feels like a food.
Yeah.
Which I know is not supposed to.
Yes. Right.
That's where I think I'm stuck. Like I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I love that you say that. I would say, and again, just, working with professionals, like I would say almost all my clients, I'm not really educating them. I'm just holding them accountable, right? We're putting these things into practice. It's like the silly little things, like an example, like what I would do with the client is that is, just like using like a or like a fullness discovery journal, like, or like a scale, like let's just say you're at a meal. Okay. Just stopping every couple minutes, assessing that hunger and fullness, right? So I hear you, what you're saying. If we knew how to do all this, we would just need that one book and to be done with it. But sometimes it takes like putting things into practice, getting some support, right? Whether that's friends, family, professional, whatever that looks like. Yeah, thank you for bringing that point out. Yeah. What else? Anything else? Any other thoughts about this? Yeah.
I've been writing down what I eat now.
Yeah.
I used to do a long time ago.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I think then I'm more capable of it.
Yeah.
It's more important that, I'm not, sit there and stuff in my face.
Yes. Yes.
I feel that now, I write it down.
Yeah. And I think like there is that fine line about like tracking, right? Keeping it's one thing I always tell people, like, it's good to have those tools almost as like a starting point to be curious, right? But it's like the second you feel like it's almost like you're letting that dictate you, you're kind of like out of your body and like what it kind of needs, or that can become a little bit more harmful. And there is that fine line, right? And I see it, all my clients, they have these like Apple watches or whatever. And I say that just because like I'm like Android, like Fitbit, Google all the way. So I always like, tell me about what the rings are. Like I'm always saying that. But they're just like, yeah, like I just, like I had a client, she's like, I'm sick, but I just had to get my rings today. And I'm just like, let's talk about that. Like you're sick right now. Like, and it's like, what makes you feel like you have to do that? So sometimes those tools, I just say like, those are good as like a starting place, right? Maybe you can look at one day and be like, wow, like, yeah, like I had a lot of protein, or I had some fiber for breakfast, or I just had some like really good crunchy fruit salad or something. And that made me feel good, versus maybe day B when, you kind of woke up the next day not feeling so good. It's good to kind of have those like curious observations, versus like just like a set plan, but it doesn't sound like you're using it that way, which is good, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. And sometimes too, it is just, I think sometimes like along with the mindfulness and sometimes the mindlessness, it's like, do we even know like what we're eating sometimes, right? Like we're plowing through our day. So many people I talk to, it's like, they're just like, oh yeah, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. I didn't eat anything yet. So, and again, that's a good way where it's like, sometimes just literally just jotting things down, whether it's like things that you're eating or just setting alerts or reminders or whatever it is, just so we are having that consistent nourishment. That's so helpful too. Yeah.
Because when they do eat, then they're like,
You're binging. Yeah.
French fries,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
all at once. Yeah. And that's when like you're past the point of like comfortable hunger, right? Like on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being kind of like comfortable or like nothing, right? 10 being extremely ravenous, like it's like you're just so far past. So it's like your mind and body are just like quickly catching up in whatever way possible. And that is kind of like what we see is like that like binging type behavior. Yeah.
How do you accommodate, like, how do you incorporate like I don't want to use the word addiction.
Yeah.
A crave, like,
Yes.
like I get to 8 p.m. and it's like, okay, I
Mhm.
must have sugar before I go
Yeah.
to bed,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
sugar comes after savory.
Yes.
And like, how do you embrace that?
Yeah.
Do you try and break that? Like,
Yeah.
how does that work?
Do you restrict sweets to begin with?
No,
Okay.
I mean, but it's just the craving always comes
Yes.
like right before bed, and I
Yeah.
feel like the meeting would say, okay, like,
Yeah.
have something
Yes.
that you're feeling you need,
Yeah.
or value,
Yeah.
but also like medically, it's like, don't eat 2 hours
Yes.
before you go to bed. You
Oh,
can go
food
over
rolls.
fast,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
There are a couple, right? You said a couple food rules, right? Like, I think it's like a routine, right? Sweets come after savory. One. Also the don't eat 2 hours before bedtime. So it's like, I always like to like explore like, what is it about that moment? Like sometimes people feel like after dinner, almost just like a sense of relaxation, or they feel a certain way, like I've done my job for today, or I've raised amazing kids, or almost like they kind of use like sweets as like a reward system. Sometimes they're using it as a routine, like you've mentioned. So it's kind of like I like to kind of like, of course, say like, let's, while we're working through this, like have those sweets, right? We want to honor that. We don't want it to be restrictive, but at the same time, like, let's talk about like what's leading up to that. Is it just a routine that maybe we can try something else? For a lot of people, they just like to have just like something to like when they like watch TV or whatever that is. But is that like a behavior we can change with something else? Like, I don't know, something else that can still provide that same level of satisfaction and still like quell that craving, but that's not harmful for us, if that kind of makes sense. I'm trying to think like what could something be like that for you?
No idea.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And at the same time too, it's like it's if that's how you want like to have sweets and you have a good relationship with it, that is fine. I
Right.
mean, I think it's just diet culture that tells us kind of some of those food rules that we can't do this or we can't do that.
I think if I really sit and think about it,
Yeah.
it's more about like, let myself have it, but listen to the fullness.
Yes.
Like, am I actually hungry for this right
Yeah.
now? Do I want
Yeah.
to eat, or like,
Yeah.
like one can't be good enough?
Yeah.
Satisfy that. Right.
I know.
For once.
I know.
But
Nobody does. But with that, like, I love that. I forgot to mention this, and this kind of comes up more with specifically intuitive eating, is just like food is about satisfaction, right? Like people in France, they're not turning down chocolate croissants. They're enjoying the moment. They're savoring every bite. They're not distracted. They're with company. They're embracing activities they love. They're honoring like food traditions and like baking techniques. And so there is just nothing wrong with that. I think it's like we're just in this constant limbo, like, can we do this? Can we not? And then we're just like so far gone away from that food experience. I know for me, it's like I know my period's coming because I need like the Oreos, that's when they come out of my like, that's when I just want them. So it's again, it's like what's your body kind of telling you? And if like you do want some sweets, that's fine, Yeah.
how do you
Mhm.
giving yourself
Yes.
money
Yeah.
versus, yeah, versus like
Yeah.
intuitively knowing that that's not right?
Yes.
All structure our day
Yeah.
efficiently.
Yes.
Might need this pills every day.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's efficiency to that.
Yeah.
To our body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you? What is
I think just that, like, is it like what's dictating your eating decisions? Is it schedule? Is it like we eat at 6 o'clock? Or is it like I'm feeling hungry now? And I think for a lot of people, like it is like the habits. I mean, I don't want to say that because we want to schedule with eating, but sometimes that can be a kind of a part of the problem is like you're just so embraced in this, but that takes you farther and farther away from like if you're truly hungry or full or want food in that moment. And that can be a kind of along the same lines as food rules. Like we have to eat at this time, this time, this time. But again, what if you're just not hungry? Like, what if you had a day when you did an hour-long workout here versus like a day when maybe you didn't do anything, or maybe you were sick? I think all those things can differ. But with that being said, it is kind of finding that happy medium. I think the more you kind of practice like listening to your body and those urges, I think you can have like a happy marriage in sync with like a schedule, if that makes sense. So I don't know if I answered that, but I think like I think like following like a very strict schedule, it can like take you a little bit away from like what your body might really want or need. Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a follow-up
Yeah.
question about scheduling, because like, I think about like our work,
Mhm.
like, so I go to
Yeah.
Japan 4 days a week. In the
Yeah.
morning. So I think about like, before boot camp, like, I'm not hungry when I get up
Yeah.
at 5 in the morning, but I know like, I gotta eat half a protein bar.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
then my understanding is like, after you're doing heavy
Mhm.
strength, like, you should take in some protein.
Yeah.
And after that, so that it still like
Mhm.
affects those muscle work. I like boot camp, I'm not really hungry until like an
Yeah.
hour and a half later, but I know that I've kind of missed my window for the
Yeah.
protein to work. So like,
Yeah.
is it okay to force yourself to like eat something when you don't?
Yeah.
feel it?
And I think there's always those times when like, right, it's not going to be 100% perfect. You're in sync with that. I always say the same thing when like, if people have like diabetes or some other like condition that they have to work with, where nutrition does almost have to be prescriptive. I think this is a perfect example. We know that like, again, like repairing and growing that tissue that, you've worked so hard on. I mean, in that instance, like it's safe and normal and healthy to do. So sometimes like, it isn't always like, oh gosh, like I'm not going to eat anything because I'm not hungry, but it's like in consideration with what's going on as well. And for your example, it'd be the exercise. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great example.
Yeah, just thinking about it, I'm like, exercise
Yeah.
has in the past just killed my appetite.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to eat.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I do like to have that disclaimer. It's like looking at the big picture. You might have times that dictate more increased or different nutritional needs. You might have times when it's a little bit less. But again, it's like trying to be as in sync with your body as possible. I always tell people to like, being in sync, it's like listening to our other bodily functions, right? Like when you have to go to the bathroom, I hate saying this, but really when you have that urge and desire, you don't just be like, okay, I'm going to go in 3 hours. You probably get up in the next couple of minutes and go. So like, why, like what's different than when like our body's kind of talking to us and saying like, I'm hungry. I think that's why I try to tell people that. They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, yes, exactly. So it's kind of like putting it in the same realm of like, that is like self-care. Nutrition is self-care. And again, doing different things, it'll just dictate, it'll look a little bit differently when you add workouts, or if you have like a chronic condition or whatever that might look like. You're sick, I've been sick for like 3 weeks, I feel like, so my nutrition has been different, so yeah, good. What else? Any other questions? Otherwise we can start wrapping it up. I talk too much. Yeah. Mhm.
I'm not just eating in the morning, I don't.
Yeah.
But then they, by the consequences of that.
Yes.
You can't make it through the work.
Yes.
Dizzy.
Yeah. Yes.
Because they did decide not to. So I think the workouts part of it is like knowing the consequences of not.
Yes.
So if you don't eat, like I don't, I'm gonna tell you, like eat right after the workout, you should have water.
Yeah.
You need to like replenish your, water and minerals to whatever, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, if you don't eat after work, and then like, when you do normally an hour and a half, 2 hours later, now you're ravenous.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you didn't eat after.
Yes.
The consequences of
Yes.
not feeling your body for that workout or after that workout are gonna be even bigger. So
Yes.
it's not necessarily that you're making yourself eat before the workout or after the workout. You're preparing yourself for what that workout's gonna do to your body. And
Yes.
what's gonna happen after that workout if you don't eat when you should, or
Yeah.
when you think you should. Hours later, you're gonna eat too much, or you're gonna
Yes.
feel like crap. Like I get hypoglycemic.
Yes.
I eat after I work out.
Yeah.
My blood sugar drops.
Yeah.
I get shaky and dizzy, and I have to go back
Yeah.
down. So it's not necessarily that I'm doing that because of the workout, because I know the consequences of not. and
Yes.
I'm not gonna feel good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of habit, but it's also a habit that I learned because I know it's constantly out now.
Yeah.
And the good news is I am forcing myself before and after.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
was kind of questioning, is that the correct thing when I'm not
Yes.
hungry later? I think that's a good way to look
Right.
at it.
Yeah.
It's not like you're not hungry, it's you're preparing yourself for what you know you're gonna do.
Yeah.
It's eating with a purpose of.
Yes.
Me sitting at my desk.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Well, better nuts than the word is original, but I think
So
they're good too.
yeah.
And-
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's again, it's knowing what the purpose of.
Yeah.
Right. And mindful.
Yes. And I was just gonna say that, Tara. It's yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think I think like the whole point, if there's one takeaway, it is just to have those just self check-ins, like just checking in with yourself, like on the days, maybe you say like, you don't eat before you work out. Okay. Like, and you're feeling a certain way later, like think about, like walk through that day, walk through like maybe your food, like if you wrote down what you're eating or you didn't eat, think about that. Right. And I think like Tara said, like those things become ingrained as routines and habits that work for you. I think some of these things like writing down what you eat or just like looking at your hunger and fullness, it sounds daunting, right? It sounds like straight up like, why am I doing this? It's going to take a long time. Like, but again, like you get to know patterns and you get to know how you feel in certain situations. And again, so much of that comes back to like listening internally. Just like Tara said. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Okay, well, let's wrap up. Does anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, I'll just kind of quickly go through this handout as like a take home for y'all. Oh, okay. This first part's just a little bit about me. Again, like my focus areas are definitely like the intuitive eating pieces, general wellness, eating disorder recovery, disordered eating, and I do one-on-one counseling sessions virtually. That's more of like the background about me. And it's something I just feel so passionate about. And I think the beauty of this too is everybody's journey so differently. And that's what I love about it, because no two clients are exactly the same, right? Or no two things we talk about are exactly the same. And then the back part just talks a little bit about intuitive eating and really what some of the principles look like. And again, it's a lot of the things we kind of touched on today that are in like the non-diet realm, but it's just in like a more specific framework. So rejecting the diet mentality, honoring your hunger, right? Making peace with food, allowing all foods to fit. Challenging food police, which again is a lot of like, how can we like break down those rules? Cleaning your plate, like how can we break a lot of that stuff down? Where does it come from and how can we challenge it? Discovering the satisfaction factor. How can we be more like the French people, right? Like how can we enjoy like our triple cream brie and our baguettes without feeling guilty about it? How to feel your fullness, how to cope with emotions, such a big one. How can we explore like other things to cope except just with eating food, which is okay, but just like, other modalities. Respecting your body, like knowing your worth isn't just dictated by the number on the scale or like what your pant size is. Joyful movement. I know we talked about that earlier too, is like moving your body because it makes you feel good, not just because we're doing it to burn calories. And then of course, like the nice thing about intuitive eating is, and when my clients like have worked through a lot of those pieces, is kind of roping in more of those gentle nutrition concepts, because again, nutrition is important. The anti-diet, I love this, isn't anti-health. Like, of course, nutrition is important, but how do we like incorporate it in a way that's not going to make us feel like, it's not like steeped in like rules or shoulds or goods, bads, like, just so it's more like nutrition that's going to be the best for our mind and body. So yeah. Well, that's all I have to share with you guys. Any kind of last questions? Anything? Tara, go ahead. Yeah.
Aside from, blood testing.
Yeah. 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 I think like there are certain things that come up like signs and symptoms of like certain like nutrient disorders. And that kind of can be different for every nutrient. Is there one you had like specifically that you're thinking of? Okay, yeah. And I think just like a lot of things,
It's just curiosity.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, or like I often hear like the food allergy test or like the food intolerance test. I get a lot of questions about that. I think like, if you are feeling a certain way, it could be a nutrient deficiency. It's not common really, because again, our foods are fortified so much, and most of us take probably a multivitamin, so we have kind of those safety nets in place. But again, like I think like Wisconsin, I think like vitamin D deficiencies. I think magnesium is like a big one right now. Hair, skin, and nails, and all the nutrients that go along with that. Those types of things can show up. So I think it just differs for which one you're talking about. But yeah, you can definitely have physical symptoms of that. Yeah. I think like,
Finding a supplement on your own.
I hate to say don't do something if you feel like if it's safe to do. So for example, like I know I'll take like a vitamin D supplement, and honestly, I haven't gotten my vitamin D checked in like 5 years, but I just know it was low. And I know, right? Like I look at all the big picture things. We're without sun most of the year. I'm a middle-aged, like premenopausal woman. Like it's just something I know I need. So if there's like enough justification and you feel good about it and it's safe, I just don't see any harm in that. Yeah, yeah,
My auntie just said what she said.
yeah,
Because so
Yeah.
much
Vitamin D.
vitamin D is so important.
Yeah.
I'm out in the sun
yeah,
with sunscreen on. and
yes,
My vitamin D, when they test my blood, it's still low.
me too,
Yeah.
literally. Mine's always below 20. Yeah. Yeah,
Some
Yeah.
DNA, you could stick you on the equator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but these are like very factual, right? Proven things we're talking about. Like, it's not like walking into GNC and like, oh, this like moringa powder is going to do X, Y, suppress our appetite, right? Like, again, I think that's good to kind of like decipher a little bit of fact versus fiction. But yeah, vitamin D is a good example for that. Yeah, good question. Anything else? Anybody? Good. Well, hopefully I'll see you around. Yeah, if you guys ever just want to chat, or if you want to talk about what like working with me could look like, just give me a call, send me an email. I'm not scary, like I'm not pushy. I have clients who work with me weekly. I have clients who work with me monthly. So it just, even just some people who kind of just want to like check and see, or I'm even happy to like give you some like information, books. Like I love podcasts. I have so many good podcasts. Just send me an email or give me a call. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. We did it. We did it on the balls.